It's quite shameful, but I have to ask you this question. I was doing my research and I learned that many blame rapes and such incidents of domestic violence and sexual violence on movements such as feminism and Women's March. How disgusting does it sound to you?
I can't even put it in words, the frustration that I feel at such talk. And not just that, this kind of discourse is glorified. And people are turned into national heroes just for such rhetoric. Let me tell you something interesting. So every single year on International Women's Day, Pakistani feminists and women from all walks of life, actually, they march on the streets raising concerns over issues they face in their daily lives, But what do? What does our society do? We don't address their concerns. We just tell them to remain quiet. We read words into their placards, attribute wrong meanings to them, and then label them as the villains, as shameless, as a threat to our society, when it is these women who are themselves under constant threat. We have to realize that every individual's, but particularly a woman's bodily integrity is inviolable. We have to support our women unquestionably when they assert their natural rights over their person. So there's a slogan which goes like, my body, my choice, or mera jism meri marzi, which created a ruckus, disquiet in the society because this was seen as a direct threat to patriarchal power. See, if a woman started owning her person and her body, then what about the power structures we have so painfully maintained? So those in power, they feel threatened whenever a woman comes into her own. So when a woman says that only she exclusively has the right and the ability to make decisions regarding her body, to make her own choices in respect of her physical being, that operates as a first barrier to potential sexual predators and rapists. So it's a clear indication to such criminals that being a man does not automatically entitle them to intrude upon a woman's person. Only rapists and sexual criminals would have problems with the slogan of my body, my choice. Woman's being is intruded into in several other ways too. I'll tell you. And I'll tell you what the significance of a woman taking ownership of her body and saying that, she is the only one who gets to exercise her choice over her own life, her fate, and ultimately her body. You see, the ways that you intrude into a woman's bodily integrity, they range from forced marriages, social pressure over pregnancy, when the society intrudes into her physical being, pregnancy, it directly affects a woman's body. Is that not stripping her of her personal autonomy? Honor killing again, that is another example. A woman's physical person is attacked upon due to honor of the patriarchal family. So prejudicial views about women, all of these, concepts, they need to be challenged. When they say or when they think of a woman as worthy of being preyed upon based upon her dressing, her demeanor, her perceived behavior, it is these kinds of intrusions into her physical space, the deprivation of agency and control over her person, her body being the first target of attack that she raises a voice against. So what does our top script writer, there's a certain person called Khalilur Rahman Qamar, what does he say? He says, what body? What choice? This is the way that you nullify a woman's physical being by converting her into an abstract non-physical entity, which is either worthy of respect or not worthy of respect, depending upon criteria which suits the vested interests of those at the top of the patriarchal ladder. When you question her choice, you dehumanize her, saying that she's a slave, and a good woman is one who is an obedient slave, whereas a woman asserting her right is vilified and portrayed as a wayward animal needing to be tamed. That is the narrative peddled by our popular electronic media every single night. And this is what the likes of Khalilur Rahman Qamar advocate. They ask, who has permitted you women to be out on the streets to protest? So again, you put the man on the pedestal without whose permission the woman is nothing. You infantilize the woman, trivialize her existence as being completely dependent upon the man's permission. So the question should be, who has allowed men like you to speak in such a manner, so disrespectfully about our women? I know women who went out on the Azadi March recently to protest against this motorway incident. And let me tell you, they are from all walks of life. They are from rural areas. They are our teachers. Two of them I even know, their fathers served in the army for our great nation. And you are trying to ridicule, you are trying to defame these women. What have you contributed to the society? That is my question to these misogynists.
Right, and I mean, it's deplorable to say the least. And to add more to what you have just said, I believe it was only a few hours after this gang rape incident, one of the senior police officers who was apparently leading the investigation into this incident criticized the victim of
Right.
this rape and said that she shouldn't have been out of her house at this time of the night. I mean, when such kind of rhetoric is coming from police officers who are investigating incidents of rape, what can we expect from senior politicians?
You see, that is exactly the thing. When you try to find some justification, or even if, the person in question would say that this was not a justification, explanation, fine, explanation. When you try to shift the focus on her dressing, on her behavior, by her I mean the victim, what are you trying to do? And what is the connection with rape crimes? The connection goes very deep. You underplay the gravity of rape and sexual crimes. When you on television, in national media, you've talked about the CCPO Lahore who said that, and his tone was of complete disapproval. The way he spoke was, after all, why did this woman have to be out on the streets? Why did she have to take that road? And the message is very clear that don't look up to us for your security, fend for yourself. And then, comes the idea, yeah, of course, if she should have taken some male figure with her, she should have taken some man with her. And my question is, if a husband, for example, would have been unarmed, and those robbers and those rapists would have come armed, which I believe they were or they would have been, would an unarmed man, would even a man in such a situation have saved her? Clearly not. So what even our Human Rights Minister Shri Mazari said, talk about respecting women, not just because she is someone's wife, or just because she is someone's mother,
Right.
or just because she's someone's sister, but because she is someone. She's a woman, she's a human being. It's time that you expand your definition of human being in such a manner so as to incorporate her within it. By her, again, I mean the woman. When you try to say things like, again, I'm saying, our electronic media, every night they call misogynists. Every single time something happens in relation to women, you call a scriptwriter, a cheap scriptwriter, who says that how dare, and for 6 months I've been listening to this on our news channels, how dare these women carry placards shaming and naming their brothers and their fathers. Let me tell you, the ruling party PTI's own emanation, Dana Gulzar, has recently revealed that over 82% of rape victims are raped by their male relatives. So then I ask you, who should we believe? Should I believe a privileged man who happens to be a film scriptwriter with zero experience of what it feels like to be a woman, or the women themselves who are bravely enough shouting out loud on the streets that they have been violated by their own family male members? Should we listen to an anchor person there sitting and sipping tea comfortably in her, studio, wearing expensive designer outfits on a daily basis? Or should I listen to the woman on the street struggling to get her basic rights to dignity, to live with dignity? Are these television anchors, are these television channels, are such guests who are turned into national heroes for using vile and vulgar language towards women, are they not crushing victims' voice, and ought they not to be held accountable? Because what I've been saying is, when potential rapists listen to these people, they feel that,
Right.
after all, rape is not that grave a crime. Such a wrong messaging and conditioning.
Right, and Muneeb, I believe men like the ones you mentioned are nothing but complicit in exacerbating the rape culture. So what do you think the government needs to do to eradicate this ill notion from the society?
Look, I believe that the concerns might be genuine. I've just named people even from the ruling party. And then, of course, there are people within the ruling party and within the opposition parties who have given such callous and careless statements in the wake of this rape incident. But at the same time, there is, an attempt to reform the law in such a manner so as to make an example out of the rapists, the offenders. There have also been sexual harassment laws. But what I have been trying to, and what I'm at pains to say, is that if we do not translate law into practice, then what good are the statute books lying there, gathering dust and nothing happening actually on the ground? Can we not see? It's not, recently top political figures have said that divorce is born out of, and divorces are born out of vulgarity. And rapes are also born out of vulgarity. And you have equated divorce with rapes. Now, so many women suffer at the hands of abusive partners, domestic violence. You are telling them that they are as bad, if they want divorce, they are as bad as rapists. What kind of messaging is that? The root cause is exactly what I've said. embedded misogyny. These views which are peddled every single night on our televisions. Why is it that when something related to women happens, rape happens, or women come out on the streets demanding their rights, you call the biggest misogynist in the country and you make him an authority on women's rights, who himself is not a woman, who himself has no clues about what a woman's bodily integrity even means. You call that person, that is the root cause. That is what needs to be addressed. You should stop inviting people on television who normalize rape culture, who empower these rapists and sexual offenders, who say that Me Too is very bad. Why is Me Too bad? Why is it bad for women to give a shut-up call to sexual offenders? Why is that bad? This is what we need to address, this mindset.
Another gruesome incident has taken place in Pakistan. What are your thoughts?
It's so difficult to sum it up in words. How gruesome, how harrowing, just knowing about this incident where a woman who is violated, whose bodily integrity is intruded into right in front of her children would be scarred for their lives. They would never be able to forget this. And neither should we. This should be a defining moment in our society, in our history. And the question should now really be, do we lend a listening ear to our women? Are our women free to speak up? Have we as a society provided safe spaces for women to go about the daily business? Now, with incidents such as these, clearly not. And we can't go on like this. We cannot fail our women. So now is the time that there has to be a shift in attitudes. There has to be a shift in aims and priorities. And most of all, we must avoid any knee-jerk reaction, because what is going to happen is that certain elements are just going to hijack the whole issue and make it their own. And usually it's the same people who are the perpetrators of such crimes. They step forward and they ask for justice, and they completely define justice in their own terms. And that is not what we want. Justice should now be defined from the victim's point of view, from the potential victim's point of view. Are we ready for that? That is my question to everyone and anyone who's watching it, especially from Pakistan.
Okay, now this brings me to an interesting point. Muneeb, now you are a lawyer. What would be the most justified punishment for a convicted rapist? This is the main topic of today's brief as well.
Now, see, punishment is very important because that it's not just the victim's sense of justice, but also the society, which is appalled by what has happened, their sense of justice as well. And punishment be such that there is an element of retribution. It has to be exemplary as well, so that no other potential offender could even think of doing something like that, so as to have a deterrent effect. Now, you see, I just said that we have to avoid a knee-jerk reaction. And what I'm listening to is very extreme reactions. They feel that it's just a few, bad elements within the society who commit these crimes in isolation. But generally, we are all safe. Our women are safe. They can go out and about, and there is no one who is going to harm them. I think that's the first mistake. What is the kind of punishment that has to be meted out to these offenders? Clearly, one which punishes them in the truest sense. Clearly one which also addresses the root cause of why such crimes take place in the first place. I mean, embedded misogyny. Punishment should be such that misogyny should also be discouraged at the same time, or else I think it would be a futile exercise, and it will be it's going to be a missed opportunity, which I think is going to be very tragic indeed, because even if this doesn't shake up our conscience, then what else? So there are debates going on about chemical castration, or public hanging, or life imprisonment, or the suitable kind of punishment. I think what I've just said in response to your early question, it should be implicit in that, what I'm trying to hint at. And it is that, we have to have a committee, a panel of experts sitting and deliberating upon what the most suitable form of punishment is, keeping all these aims in mind, which I've just said, deterrence, addressing the root cause. And most crucially, we need to hear the voices of the victims. We need the victims of these rape crimes on that panel. Isn't it time that we should lend them a voice? Should they not decide what serves, what serves or caters to their sense of justice? Isn't it time enough that we should listen to them? And then, because you see, about public hangings, a lot of people say that during the Zia era, there was a public hanging, and then for 15 years, there were no rapes, which is absolutely wrong. During the Zia era, such laws were passed that no woman could have dared to have raised a voice against any rape crime, because the tables would turn on the woman herself. Victim blaming would start. She needed to produce 4 witnesses for rape crime. And where could she get that from? And if she couldn't have, produced 4 witnesses, she would be accused of adultery. And so why should she and why would she jeopardize herself? So no surprises, when you brush rape crimes under the carpet and you say that, they never even happened. And if a woman, complains, she does it at her own peril. Of course, no one is going to come forward. So just brushing under the carpet is not a solution, and that has nothing to do with public hangings. Of course, go ahead with public hangings if there's scientific evidence to that, effect, or there is some concrete evidence to that effect that it has a deterrent effect. You need to bring the data forward, or else it would be, like I said, just a knee-jerk reaction. Right. And also we need to keep in mind that, like you in your introduction even mentioned, that there are international concerns as well. The second protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights is aimed at abolishing the death penalty. A lot of countries haven't, even, the developed world, the United States of America. So that tells us nothing about the, efficacy or otherwise of death sentence. But the thing is, we need to deliberate. What is going to serve our collective and the rape's individual sense of justice? We need to keep that in mind. Chemical castration, you're only going to be finding a very short-term solution, if a solution at all, because chemical castration, as we know, only lowers the testosterone of the male offender in question. That does not inhibit any potential offender or the main culprit himself from any likelihood of committing such acts in the future. This is a very serious question, one which cannot be answered in a single sentence, but the policymakers and the lawmakers need to work in combination, in tandem, and come up with something to which there's a long-term solution. Right. But I have one counter question. One little thing though. Sure. There should also be punishments for rape apologists. How about that?
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. And yes, we do need to address this mindset, not just in Pakistan, but across the world. Muneeb Qadir, thank you very much for talking to us on The Brief. As always, we really appreciate your analysis.